these scenes are from my railroad, and I thought it was best that if I do my own, because then if I don't hurt anybody's feelings.
Very considerate.
And brave.
Right.
You know, the more I thought about this, the more I thought it was a good idea. A lot of people are interested.
Yeah.
But I can see trying to do a Zoom without actually being there. You know, it's going to be difficult.
Well, I can make a layout that looks real good on Zoom without ever putting any wood together.
that can be a problem. That could be a problem.
You know, the advantage though about like doing a judging on Zoom though is the person that's showing the layout, you can control what's being seen on the layout. I mean, that's always a suggestion in designing a model railroad, is to develop it so you can control the visitor's viewing angles. And while it's good in theory, you know, in practice, it's really hard to control where adults are going to stand, and because of physical limitations of the room and things like that. But on you can really do great magic with pictures, because a person can only see what you're displaying, so it'll look a lot more realistic.
You know, the amazing thing how a camera will find things that the eye will never look at.
Yes. Yeah, I learned that from modeling. It's great to take a picture of your own railroad in a scene and really study it, because you will see things that you never knew were there.
Yeah, that is so true. I even took some pictures. I showed you guys the Central Indian Division of a continuous caster model, and to the eye, it looks perfectly painted. And when you turn the lights on, you know, illuminating, and then take a picture of it, you can actually see some bleed through that your eye doesn't see. So it's interesting how all that comes out.
All right, I made it.
All right.
I hear Tom's voice.
Yeah.
Okay, Steve, are you going to be the moderator of this, or how are we going to work this part of it?
I don't know. I can do it. Tom can do it. We can arm wrestle over it, but
I think, Steve, you're the one to do it.
Okay. I would be happy to. And I assume, Ron, but you're going to at least give us a head start on this. Is that correct?
Well, I'll try to give you a little head start. You know, today, every year we have tried to do an AP information on something. The first time we started out with was structures. We sat around and we looked at different structures and made comments on them and things like that. And the next year we did cars. So this year it seemed the next piece would be scenery. You know, we're all in a little bit of a problem with having to do things on a Zoom. So I asked Steve if he would take this on and help us with it, because I know he's a good judge. And I really don't know Tom or John well. I just know them on a few emails, but I'm sure that they will help us with this. And with that, I guess we can go ahead and start.
Very good. All right. Thanks for all of you being here today. I noticed that we've got people from everywhere, and that's great. This is a wonderful thing to have with the Zoom capabilities that we now have. And today's agenda, as you're seeing, we'll introduce the judges so you can at least see who you're hearing from. Go through the NMRA Achievement Program, the overview, and links. Links being the important word there, and we'll cover that in a bit. Master Builder, scenery requirements. Then we're going to look at the photos that we actually use to do our assessment of the two scenes. Scene one, and as Ron said, these are from his layout. Scene one is the Nevada scene, and we'll go through a discussion of that, all of the three of us who had done the assessment. Scene two is the Gladstone scene, again, discussion on that. And then we'll wrap up, probably take questions if we have time, and go on from there. Go ahead, Greg. Yours truly here, the NMRA region, Midwest region president. I am until May of next year. My term limits run out at that time, so I'm out of it at that time also. As Ron had said, I had done some judging in the past. I have judged at the national and quite a few division and regional contests also. Next one. Tom Kane, he's is currently the AP chair for the Central Indiana Division. Tom's been very active in AP judging for quite a few number of years. Next. And John Coy. John is currently on Director at Large in the Midwest region. He's on the board of the Central Indiana Division and is also on the AP committee in the Central Indiana Division. And go ahead, Greg. All right, this is what happens when you go out and give a look at the NMRA Achievement Program on the nmra.org page. And this is the important thing to remember, how to get to this location. We're going to go through things today. I do not expect anybody to memorize all of this stuff. What you want to be able to do is to find it, and the best place to look at the what has to be done is on the NMRA site itself. So Greg has put the URL at the top, right under the top. But if you also look at the picture of the website, in the darker blue banner, the horizontal banner, the third one over is education. And if you click on the education tab, then this opens up on the right-hand side, and the orange highlighted area says Achievement Program. Go there, and then you can get all the information is available. It tells you about what needs to be done, the requirements, and all the certificates that are available. So the idea behind the Achievement Program is this wants to make you a better modeler. And the idea was you're building a layout. You would go through most all of this as you're building a layout, and they wanted to have so you could get recognition for that. And it truly is a way to increase your modeling abilities. You may turn in a model that gets a 35 the first time. I have one modeler that I've attended his talks, and he turned it in and got a very low score. And he took it back, worked on it, took it back 5 times, and then he was up in the merit award range. So you can redo what you need to do, learn new skills, learn new techniques, and it really does help the modeler. Next, please. The scenery requirements that we need to have, and it's based on 32 square feet in HO or 18 feet in N for the most popular. And then you can do the math if you need to, based on the ratios to come up with the appropriate sizes for like S scale or O scale or whatever. And some of these may be listed in there anyway. It does not need to be all in one place. This doesn't have to be 32 contiguous square feet. But if you are breaking it up, each section that you have judged must be at least 8 square feet, and of course, achieve a merit award. Merit award is 87.5 points, but that's out of 125, not out of 100. So it's fairly easy to do. You may just have to work at it a bit. Scoring. We have the various sections that we had looked at on Master Builder Scenery, and we went through terrain, structures, the background, lighting, and realism and conformity. We'll go through all of those here in a bit, at least quickly. Terrain has a max of 35 points, structures 20, background 25, lighting is 20, realism and conformity is 25 points. Next, please. We have here, prepare a set of photographs. Obviously, that's a good thing to do, regardless if you're having this done in person or if you are using some kind of a virtual get together to have the folks do the judging or assessment on your layout. Again, we had talked about it. If you prepare the photographs, it's amazing how the cameras can find those locations where there's a problem. It's a good way to take care of things when you get that before you have folks over. Prepare a description of the materials. That's one of the things I put down on my assessment sheet, that what we were handed from Ron was a very good description, and that's very important. What you put on that sheet is what the assessment team knows about what you have done. So if you've done something special, if you've made all the 3D castings or printings, and you've done all the design of that and done all that, make sure that gets in your description so the assessment team knows that. It's quite possible some of the things you do can provide for a bit greater score. And if you were to leave that out, we would just assume that, well, perhaps this is just a commercial product instead of a home scratch-built product, rather. Again, description of the materials, methods of the construction, and tell us about what you've done for the terrain, background, and the lighting. You have to prepare a statement of qualifications for use by the judges and attach one copy. Attach assigned evaluation forms from those folks who have done your assessment. And again, the forms are available on the page on the NMRA website. So all of the current forms are available there. So make sure you're using the current forms. They do change from time to time. Next, please. We'll go through terrain. Remember, that can be a 0 to 35 points. I will quickly go through this. The ground and all natural features, rocks, trees, hills, depressions, the railroad itself, roads, cuts, drainage ditches. And that was something that's kind of stressed when you go through and read what's written on the website, is that they want to make sure that if you have taken care of the water that you need to take care of. You can't just have everything flat. I know even if it is fairly flat land, there still has to be some means of getting the water away from the railroad, and you want to move it along away from houses and such. So terrain is very important, and then how that is treated on your layout. The structures are not judged based on their construction necessarily. That happens in the master builder structures category. But what is important is that the choice of structures and location of those structures on your layout. So, it's important to have, you're going to need to have bridges of some kind, probably, culverts, track right away. If you have signaling structures, crossing gates, et cetera. So those are all the structures that you see on the layout. Again, if you've done something special with any of those, if they're scratch built, make sure that is designated in your description that you hand to the judges at the beginning of this. Next. The background. This is exactly what it is. It's the background behind your layout and how you treat the wall, the backdrop, or the ceiling to depict depth and distance. You can just paint it blue. That's okay. But if you enhance that, you'll find that you're going to end up with more points. It does help. So, clouds help. If you're doing some of the photo backdrop type stuff where you are adding trees and or houses or buildings to enhance the background, make sure that the judges know that that has happened. And it does look a little bit better. We have some very nice backgrounds here that you'll see on Ron's layout here in a bit. Lighting, 0 to 20 points. Illumination, this can be just room illumination. I know a lot of us have lights overhead, and basically that's it. That's fine, but what we do want to see is a well-lit room and an evenly lit room. Those of us with a double-decker type layout, you have to be careful and provide lighting underneath the upper deck to make sure that the lower deck has enough lighting to see what's going on. If you have capabilities for day and night modes, make sure that we know that and how to view that while it's being judged. Realism and conformity. This is you talk at the beginning about what it is you like to do. Realism and conformity is the idea of how well were you able to do that. It's the overall impression, and we want to see that we can believe that we're actually somewhere. I felt like I was in Iowa, although I've not been to Iowa that much before, looking at Ron's. So it's a representation of the real world on your layout. Next. All right. Now we'll go on to Ron's layout. And we had 2 scenes, layouts in the summer of the 1950s, and it was in Iowa. These are daylight scenes. Electric and telephone wires have been removed in places because of operating session hazards. I will point out that if you can time this such that you know when you're going to have the assessment done, I would suggest you have all the wires in place. It looks better if you can than when you are if you have to take things out. And I know this may happen after you've already done operating, but if you can go back and put those in, it does help. On Ron's layout, scenes are considered complete. Yes, it's about 80% completed. Next. The item 1 was a 32 square feet HO. And I will say that I didn't really look to see the sizes to make sure this wasn't a real tent. We were just looking to see about assessment of this. And we did basically, although there are 3 are listed here, we did 2, the Nevada scene and the Gladstone scene. We had the photographs for those scenes. Since then, Ron has added some close-up photos, so you'll be able to see the structures, and it was very nice to be able to see those. And then a description and material for each scene, and then a list of the materials for each scene. And there's a lot of carryover between the 2. Obviously, you're going to be using probably a lot of the same things, but if there's differences, let us know. Next.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah, go ahead, Ron.
In Iowa, they call it Nevada.
Nevada?
Nevada in Iowa, and it's at the point where the Rock Island and the Northwestern cross, and that says it. And I'll be quiet now.
No, that's fine. We know that in Indiana there are a lot of towns that have pronunciations you wouldn't expect just from looking at the name. So thank you very Nevada. I'm liable.
Tales.
Yes, exactly. I'm liable to say Nevada, so please excuse me, but I'll give it a try. The description is Rock Island east of Nevada, Iowa, where it crossed under the CNNW Highway 30. So that's going to be on here. And the Rock Island, we'll see that, and under the Northwestern. There's going to be a stream under all the railroads and the highway. I don't model the Rock Island, he says, so I've changed the model route to the Milwaukee. Background is forested land with rocky outcroppings. Make sure you look at the backdrop on that to see those. Prototype is farmland. All right, and we'll go on now to one of the scenes. Oh, we're still talking. Oh, 3 by 6 feet is the size of this scene. Ron made his backdrops of red rosin paper and painted sky blue, and then did some of the other painting at the horizon. We'll have a look at that when we see that. The earth contours, or a lot of us are using the same thing, foam sheets covered with drywall compound, coat of water-based brown. And this is often you can go to your local big box store and get a gallon of Oops paint. That's a paint that somebody bought and they didn't like the color. If you can get a brown, it's relatively inexpensive. I know I'm still using the same gallon from eons ago. And then you had real garden dirt sprinkled onto the wet paint. Use static grass, trees, and foam bushes finish the scene. Next. The river is a product called Mark Water from the Unreal Details Company. Now, I've not heard of that, so maybe we'll talk to you about that toward the end of this run. Let us know how you liked it. Dead trees and branches are from Hedges, and cattails are from Scenic Express. Broken ceiling tile. This is a popular way of doing things. I did on my first layout. Iowa limestone colors with acrylic paints. The trees are goldenrod. Trunks and underside painted black with rattle can. The tops were painted green and then green foam sprinkled. Dead trees are small hedge branches. Brush is made from dried flowers. And the other trees are made from plastic flowers with the leaves removed and repainted with different foam products. Replaced with different foam products. Next. The bridges, and this is how Ron took care of that. Central Valley Girder Bridge abutments, plaster castings of limestone. The road bridge is scratch built using foam board, balsa covered with plaster, guardrails manufactured by Ricks. The abutments are formed in place, plaster abutments. Underpass abutments are also formed in place, and the striping on the abutments is decals. Next. Track roadbed, commercial wood trim is the base. Homosoaked in for the roadbed, and then Walters Code 83 Flex Track. Anchored it with sand and commercial ballast. And he varied the ballast from time to time to show that it had been upgraded. Typically, sand is used on the Milwaukee Railroad, which is a close match to the Riverstone they used. The Northwestern used slag from the steel mills and at first, and then later, the Pink Lady granite from Wisconsin was popular ballast. Dummy switch machines were manufactured by Tomar. Next. Power and communication. The poles are a combination of commercial and scratch-built poles. Thread was used for the wire. On the roads, rubber baseboard was painted concrete colors and weathered with chalks. Please have a look at that when we get to this picture. It's very nicely done. Iowa used black for the center line on concrete roads during this time period, and some are still that way. This is very nice to have in there. Perhaps you've gotten someone who's doing the assessment who isn't as old as we are and wouldn't remember back in the 50s about what roads looked like. But if you put that in there, even a young person now would realize that back then, we did not have the painted striping that we do nowadays. Buildings, the buildings are kits and ready-made commercial products. All right, next. Commercial vehicles and people, and the rock cuts with them, their mirror reflecting back, making the scene look larger. Very popular thing to do, makes your layout seem deeper, goes back farther. And there is a deer on the cliff, and I did see that too, so I was happy for that. All right, list of materials used. I am not going to read that page, but you can have a look. And we've probably talked about a lot of this already in the descriptions, but it's nice to be able to go back and see. And what's nice about this too, you may be working on a scene, and if you have this written down, comes time to make something else, you can go back and say, well, what did I use on that so that I can kind of match it on this other one. You know, you're in the same area, so it would have the same things. Next. All right, this is the left side of the Nevada scene showing the Lincoln Highway, Milwaukee track under the Chicago Northwestern Railroad and the stream. I'm going to take a second here and get rid of the pictures on the side. There it goes. Sorry. In the background's a mirror giving the illusion the deer stands on the cliff. Okay, next please, Greg. Here we are with the first look at it. Excuse me. Two major things right in the foreground of this picture. We have the highway bridge up over the creek and the railroad underneath, and then the other railroad crossing over. You see the painted on backdrop there to the left. You can see the paintings. Then he has trees in front of that, still with painted things in back, so that it does underneath the trees. You can see that there's still something showing for the distance, so you don't want to just go with sky. Some trees in the foreground. He talked about the black center line on the road, the black striped decals there on the wing abutment to the bridge to keep the cars from trying to run into that. You'll also note that there are posts alongside the road. That was common to keep cars where they belonged and not down the hill back in the 50s. So it's nice to see those on here. A lot of times you'll see a period layout with the Armco barriers. The formed aluminum barriers didn't happen for quite a few years after this. So it's good to see the old way showing here.
One thing that would help, if you are modeling a scene, include the picture of the prototype. I noticed that on something that John had done, and I should have done it here because I do have a picture of this, although of course it's a little bit different, but the bridges are the way they are, and the road does go underneath like that. So I should have done that.
Yeah, I did that on mine. I included those pictures because not everybody has been to Glacier Park. Yeah, it's a beautiful place, but I realize, you know, not everyone's there, so it just gives everyone a good general idea that had never been there instead of trying. A picture's worth 1,000 words.
Or more. You can have a lot. Yeah, it is very helpful to have those. And again, when you're having any kind of an assessment in the AP program, you want to have documentation showing the prototype. If you're trying to do a car, that's obvious, you have to have it. But it just gives an idea of how the prototype dealt with whatever problems were there, how they built things. I'm going to, Tom, and John, do you guys want to go over how we scored these scenes now or come back later and do that?
Tom?
I think it'd be an okay idea to talk about some of the scoring here. So I'd be glad to do this. I had to step out for a minute, but I'm back.
Okay.
We're still in the first picture here?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. I tell you, actually go through the other pictures in the scene because my descriptions really kind of refer to things in all the three pictures of this one scene. Does that make sense?
That's fine. So yeah, Greg, if we could go to the next one, the middle scene, the Lincoln Highway passing under the Northwestern. We get to see the lumberyard building in the upper right of this scene of the picture also. Go ahead. Next. So here we are. This is the other section of that. We've moved to the right from the previous photo, but we now can see the lumberyard portion of the Vining Co-op. And let's move one more, and it's going to tell us that we're looking at the feed store, the lumberyard, coal and fuel service. And again, this is further right now from the previous. And the Milwaukee Road serves a small depot. So these are the three pictures of Vining and the area that we just talked about. So Tom, you want to go from here? Or would you like the next picture also?
No, that's good. That's good. Actually, in this picture you're looking at, you can see all the way to the very first picture where you see the highway that goes over the trains and everything. So that shows how they all come together. I'm going to just kind of go down to the different categories and give the points that I did. And for scene one, I like the fact that in the terrain, there are multiple levels of roads, railroad right-of-way, and they were all very well done, showing the bridge abutments and supporting embankments. Everything made sense. And I scored 29 points out of 35 on this particular category. On the structures and the arrangement, I felt like it was interesting. The quality of the structures also seemed to be very nice. And I gave, on this scene, 18 out of 20 points. The background here was, it was very striking, but not as well as one of the scenes we're going to see in a little bit.
Yes.
But I do think in is one of these pictures the one that didn't have a background?
It's in the next scene.
Next scene. Okay.
It's in scene 2.
Okay. So I scored 13 out of 25. So for me on this particular scene, the Nevada one, it wasn't as impressive to me. Then on the lighting, 20 points. I scored 14 points on this scene. And I kind of gave 8 points for the room lighting because I felt that was very good. No bright spots, no shadows. I gave credit for the lighting on the layout, which was the trackside signals. But that was the only thing. And I do think that overall for this scene, I gave 14 points in lighting out of 20. And things like, this would be like 1 point. I think Ron could have earned some more points if there were lights in the structures or if his description had told us if there were any lights there. And the last category, realism, conformity, 25 points. And in this scene, I scored 24 out of 25 points. And I thought this was very realistic. The track right-of-ways and everything made sense, like I said before. It's a scene that I think makes you want to look at the layout for a lot of different angles and to spend time on it, looking for all the details and things you might miss the first time you see it. The photos that were sent Ron after we did our judging were very impressive. And I think I could have maybe encouraged the other judges to give him more points in that category if we'd had those pictures. So, all right, that's my scoring on that scene.
A comment I have, this gets back to how you write it up.
Yeah.
There are working signals which are lighted. I never mentioned it. So
well,
no,
I assumed that they were working from, I think some of the pictures, I think I could even see the aspect that was showing.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you should write that in.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because whoever's judging this, all they will know. When I recently did mine, I think I turned in so much information. It was like a book. I mean, I don't necessarily like the way it's written on the internet site for the NMRA, because I think at times they make it sound like it's going to be a lot easier than it is. That's just my opinion. But yeah, the more you turn in, the more explanation you have. Because I'll tell you, Ron, when I scored this layout, and I think it's very nice. I gave it the score I did, and in the end, Steve and Tom and I were all very close, and we did it completely separately and independently too. And I was amazed at how close we were. But just like Tom mentioned a few minutes ago, after the fact, I saw all those wonderful close-ups of those buildings and everything, which would have raised the score for me. It's irrelevant. I mean, it's passing is passing, but still, I would have scored it higher because the pictures you present are critical as well, especially if no one's there physically.
Okay, I will note, and not to rebut Ron, but in his description for scene 1, under railroad signals, he says working signals are manufactured by Tomar. So we did assume that these are in fact working signals.
Yes.
John, would you like to go ahead and kind of do a synopsis of your scoring on the scene, and then I'll finish up?
No, I'll let you finish, Steve, because
okay.
Actually I don't have my particular notes for individual scores and as Tom, because I didn't realize we were going to do that today. I sent him what I had.
Okay, that's fine. We'll go back, and if you'll remember, could you back up a couple, if you would, please, Greg, to the, let's just do them. That's fine. That'll do. I really liked the topography of the scene. I liked how the road flowed around the curve of the railroad up above. We have different changes in elevation with the railroad up, the road down, the creek, of course, lower than that, which is a good thing. What else did I see? Oh, if you could go back one more photo slide. This was a slight ding that I had. The right-hand side of the bridge where it joins up with the road, the road section that's on the ground, seems to be a little sharp. I think that could have been eased a little bit, move it, feather it in a little bit better, take care of the vertical curve. I really like the way the roads are done, the coloring, the striping on it. You could tell where they patched up some of the cracks with the tar. The use of the rick sides on the bridge with the scratch building bridges for the railroad. You can see in this photo also, remember he talked about using broken ceiling tiles back there just above the bridges. You can see that along the background. And Ron, where's the mirror?
Well, you see where the deer is right behind the one girder bridge?
Yep.
The black area, in fact, is a mirror back there. And I wished I would have taken a better picture of it so that you could have seen it.
Okay. Obviously, it provides some extra depth to the thing. Okay. Yeah, when I scored the terrain out of the 35 points, I had scored it as a 30. The structures, and if you could go forward back, Greg, to the area of vining. Yeah, one more. Thank you. We get a little bit more structures in this one. Although, remember that the bridges and everything else that we saw previously, those are structures also on the layout. So now we're talking about not just as structures, but the buildings here. I thought the location of the structures appeared very natural. Use of highway roads and bridges over the streams, all flowed together. Nice side town on the edge of the farming area, and I had scored this a 17 out of 20. The background, I noted I really liked the background. I liked the painted on trees there on the left-hand side rather, the first photo, in conjunction with the trees placed on it. I did note, well, we'll get that. Let me get to that with the lighting. I had that as a 17 out of the 25. And then the lighting for this, the 20 points, I thought it was fairly well lit, although the scene we're looking at currently seems to be just a little dark. I don't know if that's a factor of the camera or not, but I liked there was enough light for us to see all the other stuff. I did note that there seems to be a dark area toward the top of the backdrop. I don't know if it just needs a little bit more lighting or what. Again, this was a 12 out of the 20. And realism and conformity on this scene, I really did like what was done. I thought it felt very real. I enjoyed seeing the black and white stripes on that wing rail. Again, I can remember that back in the area where I lived eons ago. Marshalltown looks like a nice town to live in. Layout of the streets and buildings, very realistic. I gave it 20 points out of the realism and conformity. John, do you have anything else you wanted to add?
The thing that's all the scenes, I always ask myself, the thing I like the least and the thing I like the best about it is the most interesting thing to me when I'm looking at this scene, like directly through it. I feel like I'm up either high on a hill or in a building or in a tower looking, and I like all of the different levels of everything that's pictured here. It looks so natural. Too many layouts are just flat. I mean, everything is just flat as can be, and I like the flow of it. The only thing that, and I don't want to say don't like, that's not the right, the least thing is the way the black backdrop is blended here. I mean, it's okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the way that it's done, but later on, there's another picture in the second scene that we'll see where the backdrop is just absolutely out of this world. But my favorite thing about this is just the overall realism, the sense of actually being, I mean, I feel like I'm there looking at this picture. It looks really, really good.
Very good. Tom, you have any rebuttal? Anybody?
Yeah, it all sounds good to me.
Let me point out a couple of things before we go on.
Okay.
So if you back up just a little bit, back up another one. Right? No, you're next. There, next. No, you're going backwards. Go forward. That's the one I want. If you look behind the depot, you'll notice there's no ballast. Well, you know what happens whenever you do anything like this, you see things later on. This picture was taken a year later than the judging. So during the judging, that was all ballasted in. But I made some major changes back there. And when I took this picture, there's no ballast there. So someone looking at that today would say, wait a minute, what is that? The other thing pictures don't always show, because there is between the tracks, there are rails laying in there, those two black lines. People would wonder what that was. The other thing was, I noticed that, I don't really have any signs on my buildings. So of course, now I've put signs on them. So doing something like this really motivates you to improve the scene. So that's my comments on Nevada.
I will say, Ron, that I did notice the two pieces, what turned out to be rail, right there in front of the depot.
Yeah.
And when I first looked at them, I thought, oh, well, he's got a little separation between the two sub road beds there, and he didn't get it filled up with ballast. And I looked at it a little bit more closely and then realized it's a very nice detail to be added, where you got two lengths of rail sitting there ready to be reused or to be picked up and taken somewhere else. So yeah, you have to look at things maybe twice when you're doing this assessment.
I wish, at the point when I did this, people were actually here and did this. So did the evaluation. So obviously they didn't need these detailed shots, but it would have been nice if I would have taken more of them at that time. And also, one other thing I did was I totally rebuilt the oil distribution guy there, and I've since put a clinic together on that, and that'll be something to talk about in the future.
Excellent. We'll look forward to that. All right, Greg, I think we can move forward then. Oh, yes, the close. Ron, I'm going to let you, if you would just give a quick synopsis on these, that would be helpful.
Okay, I will. They obviously have LP, which, thinking about it now, I'll have to put an LP tank in there so that we can unload some LP, which I obviously don't have. The other thing that is really wrong, in my opinion, that's the stacks of lumber. The only way reason you would have stacks of lumber like that is you're drying the lumber. Lumber is never like that in a lumber yard. So in other areas, I'm replacing all of the lumber to properly stacked. The grass probably can use more weeds in it. Generally an area like that would be just weeds. People wouldn't have cut it down. And the fuel tanks are actually the original fuel tanks, and the coal shed is not there. So all of this stuff is moved on, and things have changed. Okay, next. I would point out there the telegraph line, the electric line on the top. Having been in the telephone business, why the telephone wires are copper, that's why they're green. What you can't see on the backside are black wires, which are the power leads, and they're black. The water being a two-part epoxy made by Magic Water Company, and all of the abutments are plaster. Okay. There you see some signs that I've put on now.
Yeah.
Now, what's wrong in that scene? See, you know, you're always your own worst critic, I think. The platform is wrong. There is no way to get up to that platform. There is no way to get anything off that platform. So I've got to make some changes to that platform. Otherwise, I guess it's just a later picture. And in that one, it does show the signal better than the other one did. And I think we don't use enough hedgerows. See the hedgerow behind the building there? To the left, that was supposed to be its representation of a foundation of a building that's gone. I guess I don't have anything else in that picture to talk about. Okay.
I would just add that there is when we get back to having train shows, there's a fellow here in Indianapolis that has stacked lumber that you would find at a lumberyard. It's all boards on top of boards on top of boards. And he made it himself and sells it. He made it with, he created the original stacked lumber and then made a mold for it and has made resin castings of that. And I've got them in my lumber yard and they do look pretty nice.
Gladstone. This is an area, small village consisting of a general store and an elevator. Milwaukee Road served the elevator. Highway 30 passed through Gladstone. Gravel Road is Otter Creek number 7. That must have some memories for Ron, the school he attended. A farm and then the start of the town of, I'm not going to, is this Tama or Tama?
Tama.
Tama. See, haven't been over there. With a house and church there. Background is a typical Iowa cornfield. I'll concur with John Coy that I would imagine you're very much going to like the background on this one. And then in the foreground is the Northwestern Railroad and a dirt road that we called Bottom Road. Next. This is a 2 foot by 3 foot plus 3 foot by 3 foot size. The backdrop again, well, this one was made with foam board, painted white, then sky blue. Then kind of looked like he got rid of some of the blue and down into the white to make the clouds. And then added some other clouds in with some grays to designate some storm clouds. Cornfield is a JTT product with, this is with seeds from a garden decorative grass glued on. The fence has wood posts and brown thread for barbed wire. Earth contours were made again with foam sheets, carved into contours, covered with a light coat of drywall. Water-based brown paint applied with dirt sprinkled on the wet paint. Static grass, trees, and foam brushes finish the scene. Next. Rivers, again, the 2-part resin. Broken ceiling tile for the rock. Trees were made with goldenrod. Dead trees are small hedge branches. I keep going out and trimming my wife's lilac bushes. I really like those trees. And I try to make sure that I only get the dead stuff. So otherwise I hear about it. The brush is dried flowers, 2 pine trees, bottle brushes, and the house. Other trees are made from plastic flowers with the leaves removed and replaced with different foam products. So you can use that as your structure for the trees, and then put ground foam or whatever. The bridges, scratch built with the Central Valley tie strip, and the viaduct is scratch built using plastic I-beams under a foam deck board deck. Guardrails are plastic I-beams and form plaster made the above it. Okay, next. Woodland Scenics incline decline sets. Track bed was used on the Milwaukee track. Northwestern track is laid on commercial wood trim, sand and commercial ballast. Several types of ballast again to show the track has had upgrading. New ballast spread. Typically, sand is used on the Milwaukee Road, which is a close match to the river stone they use. And again, we're talking about the Pink Lady Granite for Wisconsin for the CNNW and dummy switch machines from Tomar. Next. Working signals from Tomar, power and communication lines. The roads is plaster formed in place, painted in concrete colors and weathered, very nicely done. The gravel road is commercial ballast with very fine sand added. And he's made sure that he's matched the color of the roads that you would see in Iowa. So yellowish Iowa limestone painted on with acrylic paint. Road grade crossings are made with balsa wood. Next. Buildings are kits and ready-made commercial products, and commercial vehicles and people finish the scenes. And the next grade. And again, it's nice to have this list so you can go back and look. Things were a little bit different in this one than they were in the last scene. So it's nice to be able to dig that up at a later date. Next. We are looking at the right side of the Gladstone scene. Section man's house, church, resident house, and farm. In the background is the Milwaukee Road. Foreground is the CNNW. And on the left, lower left, you'll see an abandoned water tower skeleton on the picture. And next. So here we are having a look at the scene at Gladstone. And this is one of the locations. If you'll notice the backdrop, the railroad is right along, obviously, is the modeled section. And then the photo backdrop for the continuation of the street directly into the backdrop, and it's done extremely well. We've got some, I would assume that the Sinclair station is on the photo. Is that right, Ron?
No, actually, the Sinclair station is on black foam board, so it has some 3D effect to the thing, and it is stuck to the backdrop.
Yeah, you can kind of see there is a very slight line. But you can see the backdrop there, and you can see fields in the distance. And as you move over to the right on the backdrop, trees in the distance, the corn crop, the JTT corn crop, you can see the edge of the cornfield there, and can just imagine that then goes down over the hill back in behind there to be a pretty good sized field, rather. The church, the house here in front, there is a small stream, the foundation underneath the white farmhouse from the rocks, the ceiling tile rocks again, some railroad structures here on the left, and a nice barn on the right. And when we looked at this with just this picture, we weren't real sure about what the roof was, but we'll see later with the close-up pictures, and it's very evident at that point. Okay, let's move on. Next is the Otter Creek School number 7 and the farm corn crib. On the backdrop is a cornfield in the tassel stage. Next. And here's a better shot of the backdrop. That's a nice use for the corn, where you're just doing the edge of the field. Cornfields can get expensive quickly if you're using the real models. Nice tree here in the front, barn type situation. The schoolhouse in the back. It's in a general store, filling station on the right. Notice the trees. Ballasted track there in the foreground, and yeah, I think it may be in the next shot. Oh no, here's one. You'll also notice that there are some culverts for the water drainage underneath the road to the right of the barn. There's a culvert there coming down, and then there's a ditch that feeds right on the other side of the railroad that goes down to the creek that goes under in the previous scene. Next one. Right side of Gladstone showing the general store, depot, and elevator. And the next. And here we are with the, we can see the general store. Is the orange building the depot, Ron?
Milwaukee two-story depot.
Okay. And then the grain elevator there in the back. There's crop right in the front, at least for kind of a small area. Here we can see the signals again, the railroad, and fair number of trees along that, the right-hand side of that. And this is the location where most of us noted, boy, it would have been nice to have another chunk of backdrop here along the right-hand side. But
instead of the door.
yeah, paint the door. Just paint the back of the door, Ron. Let's go on to the next. Oh, no, let's go back then. And Tom, you can then choose where you want to be. If we could get your take on this scene.
Let's go back to the first slide. Yeah. All right. I scored this far as terrain. I felt like this is generally flat country, but there were some rolling differences. And I liked the fact that we got to see the bridge there and the culverts, because that proves that there is a change in elevation from place to place on that scene. And I thought the quality of the work in this particular scene was exceptional. I did give 23 out of 35 points. And now that I've said that, I probably should have scored that a little higher. Structures and their arrangement is more interesting in this scene. I'm reading one. The number of structures seems appropriate. Spacing and arrangement makes sense. And I gave 15 out of 20 points. The background here, I thought the road where it disappears into the scene is exceptional. I love that, and I've been working on that kind of a place, or that kind of a effect on my layout, and so I can appreciate the kind of challenge that presents when you look at perspective and size. So that's really, really neat. But at the very far right side that we just saw in that last slide, the fact that there was no backdrop that's there is just missing. So I guess, Ron, you're saying that's kind of like the edge of the layout and there's nothing behind it there. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's the problem. It is the edge of the layout.
Okay, cool. Well, and for that area and background, I gave 16 out of 25 points. Lighting, it was pretty much the same as the other scene. The room lighting is terrific, bright. I didn't see any shadows. But far as like layout lighting in the scene itself, the trackside signals was the only thing that I saw. And so I gave a 14 out of 20 points there. Realism, conformity, I scored 20 points out of 25. I thought the scene looked realistic. Things seemed to be in their place and they made sense. Crops in the field, like the one just this side of the depot, were a little small, but that's an issue that we all have to deal with in model railroads because our space is just limited. So I gave 20 out of 25 points in that particular scene. I do think that the whole overall for the two different scenes, I think the realism and conformity area was your strongest area. And when I put the two scenes together, I came up with 22 out of 25 points, and that's pretty good, I think. So, all right.
Yeah, I just want to jump on board with Tom here. I just have a few comments. The transition there, the best thing absolutely about this scene's the background, the transition from the road. I mean, it's phenomenal. I sat there and I looked at that, and I was trying to figure out where the road ended and where the backdrop began. And I mean, that's good when you have to do that. And on the other side of the coin for the scene, the thing that struck me was the buildings are not weathered enough. I don't think the white one in the center in the church, I mean, that would be my only negative thing there. To me, they just look too clean, and they could have just been painted or clean, and I realize that. But in comparison to everything else, I can see weathering on some of the other buildings, but those two buildings, they just immediately draw my attention, taking away, because the left side of the scene, the road, and the right where the cornfield is phenomenal. And Greg, could you please go to the next picture, please? This one right here too. That's been using that corn to blend to where that is just brilliant. Because if you showed somebody that picture, if you put that anywhere on the internet, there is no way that anybody would know that was not real unless they were told that transition. It looks like a real picture to me. That's phenomenal work. Thank you.
That's right. Okay, I'll go ahead with mine then. This, you can just stay here, Greg. That's fine. I did note on terrain on these pictures, this scene, although we didn't have the changes in elevation that we did have on scene 1, I thought that the landforms were put to very good use for the railroad. Things fit where they probably really would have been. Structure locations were very well done. We also have some space in here for in between them. Excellent use of culverts again, drainage pipes, ditches, and streams. Excellent work. 30 points out of the 35. For structures on scene 2, this nice small town on the edge of a farming area. I think we've driven through those back in the days many, many times. Good placement of structures with good spacing between them. 16 points out of the 20 I had. The background, again, excellent work on flowing the street into the backdrop, utilizing the corn crop transition with the background. And again, would like to see more of the background placed on the right-hand side of the screen where the door is. 17 out of the 25 points. And then for lighting on the scene 2, I thought better overall lighting in this than scene 1, but we did notice the railroad signals in scene 1 and here also, but we don't see other lighting. I mean, even if you don't have lights on it, but if there's some evidence of light fixtures on some of the structures, we would see that too. And I realized, I'm sure there were no street lights on some of these farms out in the middle of nowhere. 13 points out of the 20 on that one. Realism and conformity. This is a nice place. I would like to have grown up here. Just look at all the places you could run around. Excellent use of appropriate buildings, roadways, drainage structures, and farming subjects. 20 out of the 25 points. Why don't we go ahead, Greg, because I think you've got some close-up shots, and let's move through those. We can let Ron tell us about them, and then we'll come back at the end and go over total scoring and tell what we had come up with. So go ahead, Ron.
Well, of course, that's the corn crib, the wood corn crib, and the fence is about to be built, and it is not at that point. And the roof and all has been weathered properly. Not a lot more in that.
Ron, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just have a question. I love the foundation of that building. What is that made out of, and what is it painted with? Because that looks like concrete.
It's made of plaster, and I use the cheap Apple, I think it's Apple Crate or whatever it is, acrylic type paints.
Okay, very good, because that looks excellent. I wish I could come up with something that good. Thank you.
Next. There you go. Okay, that's an old building. That is a cardboard building made by Sidem years and years ago, and it's somewhat similar to what Gladstone had. Again, I really wish I would have shown you the difference between the real thing in this, and there were a lot, but there are a lot of similarities. Over to behind it is the little country store, and it, obviously had that. The Highway 30 in front of it. In the trees, I like to have a little bit of dead woods. I think too often we have trees that are nothing but trees. I don't think you can have enough trees. I think there's no way. I mean, we all ought to plant more trees. Next. Okay, that was a little stockyards that was built, and that happened to be one of the structures for the that I used for structures. That's built by the plans for the Northwestern. Had standard plans for how many boards and how they were placed and all that. All of the gates operate. It is cut at an angle because that's the end of the layout. So, next. The corn crib, you didn't see that before because it was not there. As I said, these pictures were taken later. The interesting part of that corn crib is, in fact, it's a picture. It is a mailing tube covered with paper. And to find a wire-bound corn crib with ear corn in it, pretty hard to do. But I found one, took the picture of it, and we enlarged it and put it on the baling tube. The top is that's a metal top off of another kit. You notice the little driveway back to the guy's cornfield there. You can't really see how much elevation there is to it, but the area around Gladstone is probably 3 inches higher than the area next to the town of Tama. Next. Mm-hmm. And there's a picture of the cornfield, the fence in front of it. I kind of purposely made the fence a little bit dilapidated, thinking that, you know, it added a little character to it. In front there, that beige area is the gravel road, and it's a little out of focus. So next. Next. Okay. I guess that's it.
Excellent. That's a very nice picture right there.
That is. Yeah.
I think the thing to do, and unless somebody wants to say something else before this, would we go through what the scoring was that we had come up with.
Ron, what's the gauge of the track back there? Is that looks like code 70 or?
Yeah, it is code. Well, I think it's code 83. Mm-hmm. The reason why I know it's code 83 is because it's purchased track. I built a lot of code 70 and code 100 track, but that is probably either Walthers or Shinahara track back there.
What struck me was that with the painting on that looks like very light rail.
Yeah, I'm sure it is code 83 though.
Just a couple of things. Ron recently sent around a Gladstone picture for people to comment on and critique. I think that was a Gladstone picture, wasn't it, with the speeder?
Well,
or was that from a different location?
Well, it's part of this scene, but it's not Gladstone. But I thought if we had a little time,
yeah.
Why I sent that to Greg this morning. I thought we might take a look at it.
Okay, well, it's pretty cool. I won't comment on it then, but one of the things about the scene, the schoolhouse, Ron has told us in the past that that's a model of the schoolhouse he actually attended, the one-room schoolhouse, including the outhouse, which he was familiar with. Yeah. And I'd just like to make another comment on the cornfield. I think using it in the background like this is so effective. You know, when you have a large field and can put it across the back of the layout like that, it's so realistic. So I just think that's a great way to do a field.
So I've got a couple comments that I'd like to make. I'm a regular member, or I think I'm a regular member of Ron's operating sessions. And I run the Milwaukee Patrol quite often, which services both Vining and Gladstone. And seeing these pictures now makes me more appreciative of what I'm servicing in the area, because you get wrapped up with doing the ops and you don't really think too much about all the work that's gone into the scenery, the buildings, and you know, the scenes themselves. And Ron, the next time I'm over, I'm going to really take another look at where I'm taking those trains.
Good. If there, Greg, maybe we want to show up the picture, and I'll comment on it. I sent this to Greg this morning. We have a little group that we've had daily news emails, and I put this out and I said, okay, tell me what's wrong with the picture. Let me go through some things on this. If you look under the house has a gap to the rock. Okay, that's the first thing. And one other guy mentioned, well, you know, that house looks like it may have been just painted. As you guys mentioned, it really needs to have a little bit of weathering to it. I totally agree with that. Then we looked a little bit at the ballast, and believe me, all of a sudden we see there by the bridge a little bit of ballast isn't even there. And it's amazing what you see. One guy said, how in the world did he get that cable reel in there? There's not enough room to put the cable reel in. Then the question came up, well, wonder why you put such a big bridge where a culvert would have worked just the same. Then we get to the speeder, and it's noted that the speeder has no platform for getting on through the track. And normally you'd never put it on a switch. However, you don't really have room for it any other place, so a platform will have to be put in. The little gray building is the crossing tower, you know, the guy who puts out the stop sign. But if you look at that close, it is not nestled into the gravel well enough. So I can tell you today that scene is tore apart as I rework the whole scene again. So, you know, it's an interesting thing when you ask people about what they see wrong. You can't see it all that well in the building, but one of the guys said, you know, that siding, he realized it's a commercial building, so it's not something I built. But he said, you know, the people who built that, the original molds and stuff, they really didn't do too good of a job on that. And I agree with him now. You know, I never thought about that when I put it on there. So it helps to have other people critique your things. I guess that's all I have.
All right.
Oh, one more question. Ron, in the very first photo of this scene, you have the skeleton of the old water tower.
Yes.
And it looked to me in the photo like the leg that comes down near the road is almost on the road. See here, down in the lower left?
Yes, it is right next to the road. Not on the road, but next to it.
Yeah, but is really supposed to be that close?
Well, you know, it's a matter of I don't have enough room.
Okay, I was just wondering. It just looked kind of unnatural to me to be that close to the road.
Well, interestingly enough, it is.
Tear it out.
It is gone now.
Tear it out. That's what I was just going to say. Tear it out.
And that red building there by the speeder will now go on the other side to be the speeder's house.
Okay. Oh, I got it. Yeah, good idea.
And I put in some more signs. You know, there's the church. Nobody knows what denomination it is. It now has a sign. So when you do things, you see things, then you start doing them over again or adding to them.
You know, Ron, I wanted to comment about I'm sorry, Greg, you don't have to go back to the picture, but the picture we were looking at, and you were saying how the buildings don't meet the ground and there was a gap under the ground. The thing I thought was most interesting, even in looking at this picture like this, to me, because that's where the drainage is, I'm thinking the entire ground is like sinking down. And if I was the owner of the house, I would be getting that foundation shored up. It doesn't look like a mistake to me. It looks, because where it's sitting, it looks like the ground is beginning to sink. And I think if I was the homeowner, I wouldn't be too happy.
You know, foundations and the part line between that and the scenery is often missed, and only photographs really show that up. People will look at that all day long, and they won't even see the fact that.
Oh, no, I agree. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you all. Yep.
Early on, I used to take and make a foundation out of balsa or something, put it on the layout in permanently. Then I could actually bring all the dirt and everything right up to it, and then set the building on top of it. But I suppose as I got older, I'm getting lazier.
We'll hope that doesn't afflict all of us.
Yeah.
I really thank you guys for helping us on this. I appreciate it. I hope that we will film it, and I hope that we can show it to other people, and maybe it'll get them interested in going for an AP for scenery, because I've seen some beautiful stuff.
I will say for our final scores on these, and let me just make sure that we've got these correct with the other guys. Tom Kane had assessed this as a 94 total. I had assessed it as a 96, and I believe John Coy had assessed it as a 97.5. So part of the program, these were done by 3 individuals, and we did them all separately, but we did come out fairly close, within 3.5 total points between the 3 of us. So again, excellent work, Ron. It was very nice to see. I hope to one day see it in person. So we'll just go from there.
Ron, where are you at, Ron? I know you're in Michigan, but where? Close.
Well, if I was a little further south, I would be down in Indiana with you.
Okay.
Right over by St. Joe, Michigan City.
Oh, very good.
Right on the lake over here. I'm not on the lake, but I'm actually in Stevensville, which is a little village there south of St. Joe.
Okay, very good. Yep, I know where that is.
Ron, am I correct in understanding, though, that you have already had this scene evaluated for a scenery certificate?
Yeah, I did get a certificate for scenery.
Do you remember how many points you scored on it?
Do you know, I do not have that, and I don't know what it is. I suspect it was pretty similar to what you guys did. Of course, you didn't see the third scene.
Right.
That's different again, more river and so forth like that. Even that scene has been changed considerably from the time that this was judged.
Well, one of the things that I was impressed as well with Steve's observation that the 3 of us scored this individually, not seeing each other's scoring points. But I think I could have probably convinced a couple of those guys to score a little higher in the realism and conformity area. And likewise, I think from the comments I heard from both Steve and John, they might have convinced me to score a little higher in the background area based on the conversation that they had when they were describing those scenes. But the end result was really remarkably similar. So that's kind of, that's encouraging.
In a past life, I was heavily involved with the Northwestern modeling, and I was a modeling chairman. Did a lot of judging from that. And I understand about the judging. If you get 3 people, we'll all have different ideas. And unless the numbers are really a long ways apart, you know that you're pretty darn close to figuring it out. Just like you guys did. You're really within a few points of each other.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, thank you, Ron. Thank you, Greg, very much for all that you've done to put this on for us. We appreciate it so much.
My pleasure.
Steve, I have a question.
Yes.
It's regarding the points for background. If you have an island type layout, how do you judge background for an island style layout? So many people are doing the around the wall layout, but if you have a significant portion of your layout is island, how do you judge that?
Well, there are a couple ways you can do that, Rod. You can go through and we've seen it on some of the model railroader type layouts where they've had, their special layouts that they build. You can put a strip of foam board, the insulation foam, across the back and use that as a separator between both sides. I've also seen people use some manner of buildings as kind of a view block. If you can just get a view block in with some buildings, perhaps with some kind of a piece of wood, plywood, whatever, to paint that and have your backdrop on that. So you can still do that, but you have to, and then if you've got tracks running through it, you have to take care of those too. So it's a little bit more difficult than it is with a around the room type situation, but it can be done. I'd suggest maybe going out and going through Model Railroader and some of the layouts that they've built in the past. Maybe go out to Model Railroad Hobbyist and go through some of their layouts that you can go see there too. Or go out to Google and perhaps put in, backdrops across the center of a train layout. Just see where that might start you.
So the essence is to get any kind of a scenery divider. It's not necessarily to get a sky.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be the sky. I mean, there might be some included in that, but if you can give some kind of a separation, it's a little bit more realistic looking rather than you're looking at just at a big oval.
Got you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, gentlemen, if that's it, we'll conclude this part, and we want to have a very short board meeting. And so a couple of board members are on here. We can talk for a few minutes about that. So.
Well, again, thank you very much. We'll talk to you folks all later.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right.